Hello to everyone. I am Professor Dr. K.S.Rangasamy, Department of Management Studies, K.S.Rangasamy College of Technology. Now we are going to discuss about the research process, which is coming under the subject named as research methods for business. Research is defined as a creation of new knowledge and or the use of existing knowledge is a new creative way so as to generate new concepts, methodologies and understandings. This could include synthesis and analysis of previous research to the extent that leads to new creative outcomes. From this definition, we could infer that research is nothing but is a process of creating either a new knowledge or developing the existing knowledge as a new knowledge, or it need not be a knowledge, it could be a new concept, or it could be a new methodology, or it can be a new understandings. This can be the synthesis and analysis of the previous research. We need not create a very new things, but it could be an analysis on a previous research, and we can extend the previous research and we can continue and modify the existing one as a new one, and we can create new outcomes even. That is what is called as an research, and this process is called as an research process. So this is what the total research process is all about. The research process contains various stages. The stage 1 is nothing but defining research problem. This is the first stage of research process. Half defined problem or well defined problem is half solved. Fully defined problem is half solved. This is the famous quote in research area. So in that aspect, with that note, we are coming to the research problem. While we are defining the research problem, the researcher have to be very careful enough to address the areas or the scope which have to be included on the research study where they are going to study. And what is the scope? What are all the limitations we may expect? So what kind of research problem exactly is all about? What are all the variables they have to investigate, and what kind of questions they have to address, and what are all the answers they are expecting out of asking that particular questions. Everything they have to be very clear while defining their research problem. So when you have such kind of specific questions, when you ask yourself as a researcher, you will get a very clear crystallized research problems. That is going to be the first step of research process. And after that, after defining that research problem, the review of concepts and theories and review of previous research findings is going to be the second stage in research process. See, normally the greatest mistake every researcher used to do is, first they used to define the research problem. Very fixedly they will come to the review of collection of reviews. See, while they are collecting the reviews, being a researcher, they will come to know what kind of previous researches has been happened previously, and what are all the areas which are explored by the previous people, and what are all the variables in that investigative study which has already addressed, and what are all the variables which have to be addressed in future. So those things has to be clear enough, which will be really explored in this second part where the review of literature collection. While collecting the review of literature, definitely every researcher have to undergo a greatest involvement. With involvement, they have to collect the reviews and literatures. It is because this is going to be the specific sources for their research problem definition. Though the research problem definition has been stated as a first step, but still it is an interconnected process. Collection of reviews and research problem definition is not a separate stages. It is an interconnected stage where you can easily understand what are all the variables you have to study, which has been already studied. That could be easily retrieved through collection of reviews. And after that, every research article or every review, you can easily understand what is the future research scope that can be clearly identified, and that future research scope you can easily understand the variables which you being a researcher, what are all the variables you have to study in that particular investigative area. That can be easily understandable in this through this review of collection process. As I said clear, fully solved, we cannot say that fully solved, but clearly defined research problem is half solved. If you want to have a clear-cut research problem statement, obviously you have to be thorough enough on your reviews, and your reviews have to be updated review, where you will have the latest literature parts, where you will have latest studies which will bring you a clear-cut focus which has happened very recently. And then based on the review collection and research problem identification, research problem definition, we can easily go to the third part, formulating the hypothesis. Hypothesis is nothing but it is a assumed statement which contains the various variables which have to be investigated. So these two-line statement is the key mantra for any research process. This hypothesis is an assumed statement which will have the clear variables, which is the dependent variable, which is the independent variable. So what the research study is going to study, what are all the things which has to be investigated in this research process. When you have the hypothesis, you need not have such kind of confusion, because formulating hypothesis is nothing but this is the key in research part. Okay, that formulation of research hypothesis have to be clearly defined by having a specific variable definitions. And when we are going to the fourth part, design of research or research design, which must have, this part is the fourth part, though it is considered as a fourth part, but still it is the key part and important part in research design. Research design consists of various important key elements, as like population. In this population, you have to study about who's going to be your research population, and how much is your population number, and who's going to be your sample, and how that sample can be retrieved out of the population. What is your sampling design, and what is your instrument for data collection? What kind of data you are going to collect, and what kind of data collection tools you are going to use for data collection. All these key elements need to be explained in research design. And that very next is fifth part, and fifth stage is which is considered as an data collection process. In this data collection process, we can have primary data and secondary data. Primary data is nothing but your primary data which is collected freshly or newly. That data is called as an primary data. Secondary data is nothing but second level of data which has been already published through articles, newspapers, magazines, and all other published and unpublished materials are considered as an secondary data collection methods. So in primary data collection, you can have n number of techniques as like interviews, telephonic interview, mail interview. You can have your own observation. You can have your laboratory observation. Likewise, you can have n number of techniques to collect the primary and secondary data. That will come under data collection process. And the very next is analysis of data. After collecting the data, how the raw data is going to be analyzed by using various tools. It could be any kind of tool based on your population technique, based on your population. You can define. You can go for either parametric tests or non-parametric tests can be used. Out of using the perfect selection of tools is an art. That selection of tool, if it is right, obviously you will get right answer for your research problem. You will have right kind of solution ultimately by using a right kind of data analyzing tool. And the very next is interpretation and report generation. After analyzing all your collected data, then you will go for interpretation and report preparation. So you will find out what are all going to be your suggestions out for that problem to solve that research problem, and what are all going to be your findings, and what kind of conclusion you are making out of studying that research problem. So, and what is going to be your future research scope, everything has to be written. Then you have to prepare your research report. By having all these elements, you have to prepare your whole research report. This is what is all about the complete research process. Thank you.